Hello, my friends, how are you? Coming to you with this video because I want to react to another video because there might be some misunderstanding. And as a teacher of foreign languages and a learner of Latin myself, I think I should clarify some things. It's of course about learning Latin, and this channel, in my idea, was originally designed to be only in Latin, but I cannot yet speak Latin that well, so please forgive me. So I would like to show you where the source of my video comes from, so that you can later. I will link the video, of course. You can later check it out and confront what I'm saying with what he is saying. So, without further ado, the video was posted on Classic Cognate's channel, and it's this one.
This book does not teach you to read classical
The title is Can Familia Romana Make You Fluent in Latin?
Latin. You may have
And as you have heard, this book doesn't teach you what he said.
This book does not teach you to read classical Latin.
It doesn't teach you to read classical Latin. Well, how? Why is this claim made? Because it's a big claim without even telling what this book is. First, if you learn a foreign language, you would usually know that one book is usually not enough to learn a language.
You may have heard that Familia Romana is the holy grail for Latin learning. That's
Is the Holy Grail. Yes, it has become such a thing, but not only Familia Romana as one book, but the whole big series of books that come along with it. So that's already not 100% true.
That's what I thought too, until I realized I was being misled. You see, they tell you that with this book, you'll learn Latin like a Roman child.
I don't know who has said that, but I don't think this is a serious thing. I mean, some people might have used this metaphor, but yes, this book is designed to lead you without going out of this book. I mean, it's the language should come to you naturally. You should understand the words, the forms, everything from the context of the book. That's why it's got pictures, it's got explanations on the margins, etc.
But here's the part they're not talking about. This book will not make you fluent in Latin. So today I want
Well, no one has ever said that this book will make you fluent in Latin. First of all, this book is designed to help you read in Latin. I mean, fluency is speaking, also writing. That's not enough, definitely. And no one said that this book will be sufficient, will be enough.
to talk about some of the biggest misconceptions around this book. So this book gives you the illusion that learning Latin is easy.
No, it doesn't. Learning a language generally is both easy and difficult. It depends on your background, whether you know already some foreign languages. If you know, it's always easier. And it is easier, and this is the main concept, than the traditional grammar translation method. So, for example, if you take Wheelock, because I'm using this one as the most popular book in the English learning word, you will have very little texts to read. How are you going? What's the point of learning to read when you can't read? You have some sentences, some quotes, but till chapter, I don't know which one. There are really no texts. You need to get through many lessons to have very, very short texts. So you cannot get into reading. With Familia Romana, you get into reading. So the main goal of learning Latin, which is to read original books.
So it starts off with very simple sentences. Roma in Italia est. Italia in Europa est. Then it
Well, where else should it start?
goes into Hispania et Italia et Graecia in Europa sunt. Okay, we see the difference between est and sunt. And then in the first chapter, you start learning about Insula Magna and fluius magnus, etc. Okay, so far so good. And then you can progress through the chapters. Okay, you come to chapter quartum, the fourth chapter. We see here on the side a sack with money coming out of it. We see saculus. We think, oh, that's a sack, a bag, right? That is so easy. Latin
Well, that's the
vocabulary is so similar to English. This
no. No one has ever said that. That's your conception. The author was not English, so he didn't want to make it. He didn't want to make an impression that's similar to English. So yes, of course, the book offers you tons of help, uh, of clues, where which help you to learn, because this is how we learn foreign languages. This happens when I teach a foreign language to my students. I don't use any other language than this one language that I'm teaching. I use pictures, I use motion, and of course, this is a book originally intended for classroom usage. So this is not the magical book that was intended for self-learners, although it's very useful.
this book gave me the false impression that I was reading Latin. But
And what else? This is Latin. This is reading Latin. This is not English, neither Polish.
what was really happening is that I was learning to respond to cues. I would read the passage and then see a picture of a man on the side, and it's like, weird, okay.
Yes. Why? Because this is how we learn. Somehow the book has to help you learn the vocabulary. Without this, how would you learn?
Or equus, I would see a picture of a horse. When I actually started to read original Latin text,
After what? After the fourth chapter, and even after the whole book. This book is not the end. It's not enough. You can't read, you are not able, I mean, in this sense, you are not able to read original text after completing one book. This is insane. As, for example, if I told you that you need to take a A1 and A2 even level book in English and then read Shakespeare. No one would expect you to understand Shakespeare after such a course. This book is more or less like this, although it covers much more grammar than it would be covered on A levels. Let's say it's to B level, but the amount of vocabulary is very small. It's less than 2,000 words. In order to understand a text in a foreign language, you need to understand more than 90, 95, 98%, depends on whose research you're following. I would agree on 98 for very, very fluent reading. So 2,000 words, and Latin vocabulary is much, much, much bigger. This would cover only 80% of the text, and to get from 80 to 98%, you need many thousands of other words. This would require something around, I can guess, but 10,000 words in your running vocabulary that you understand very well, very quickly. So that's just the beginning.
it was not so easy. I found that this text did not actually prepare me for real Latin.
That's not true. This text was a part. Well, yes, it's true. This book alone doesn't prepare you for reading real Latin, as A1 or A2 level English book doesn't prepare you for reading Shakespeare. But it's a start, a very good start.
So then we get to chapter 16, Tempestas. This is right after we learn about the passive voice, videor, I am seen. So then he introduces these deponent verbs, and it is very difficult as students to understand this stuff because there is no explanation. He just
Okay, let me check, because I can agree to some extent that sometimes the explanations are not the best, but chapter 16 here, and I read the grammar part. Verba deponentia medus laetatur equals gaudet, nec dominum veretur equals timet. Okay, so I get this is not an easy part, I understand, but there is a direct explanation that laetatur, a deponent verb, has the same meaning as gaudet. And of course, there has to be this step where I accept that difference, but this is explained here. It's a very short explanation, the grammar part, but it's after let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6.5 pages of text. And as this book is intended, you read the whole thing with grammar and you reread the text. Language, understanding the text, is a skill that you have to practice. You cannot just read it once and then expect everything will fall into place. You need to read, especially if you're a self-learner, yes, you need to read it more than once, sometimes maybe 3, 4 times, and then do the exercises, because doing the exercises will help you understand. Like, you learn by doing. You might not understand, like, be able to explain everything, like you are not able to explain everything in English that you do when you speak, all the structures, all the tenses that you use and why you use them. As me, as a Polish, as Pole, I use cases, I use conjugations, but I don't think, I never think about them when I speak. Oh, now I have to use this or that case. It comes automatically. This is what this book is trying to teach you, to use it naturally, as if you were a native Latin speaker. Of course, that's maybe a little exaggeration, but this is the way I read Polish books. I don't think, oh, here is nominative, or here is locative, or here is something. No, I just read and I understand. This book tries to help you make your first steps in that direction.
Just starts putting these phrases in there. As far as basic vocabulary, okay, you can use one word to teach the synonym to
And I agree, sometimes this is a little difficult, because here you can't see it, but aigrotare is explained as aiger esse, and this word aiger was introduced earlier. But if you have forgotten that, that explanation is not the best, and I agree that sometimes these explanations in the margins are not the best, but yeah, you have to go through this book. And well, if you look into a dictionary once or twice, that's not a sin.
another one, right? But as you get towards the end of the book and it starts introducing the clauses like cum or ut, for example, dominus imperat ut servus imbrobus teneatur et verberetur. Trying to play children's games as an adult does not work. Most
I don't understand this, because this book actually, when you open these chapters, very often, and people might find it a little bit boring even. These clauses are very often repeated. I mean, first there is a normal sentence, let's say, and then there's a clause. And there was, for example, with orders, I remember, there's Julius, yes, he's in his field, and well, we have the text. Julius eum colonum in agro conspicit. Julius sees the farmer and says, here's a quote, Huc accede colonna. Come here, inquit. And then it is repeated. Dominus imperat ut colonus accedat. And we have like the same meaning, just with other words. And this goes on and on and on. And this is how this book is structured. So we can clearly get that this phrase means more or less the same thing. And then a lot of it is explained in the grammar part. And actually, for this ut here, there's a lot. And yes, this might not be enough, but it's not a children's game. This is a very well thought book, and you can teach like this. Plus, what this guy has not mentioned. So I don't want to spoil the whole video. He's talking about this book, that then because then he has found this comment.
Christopher said, I taught myself Latin using the grammar translation.
And this is about a Christopher who taught himself grammar with grammar translation methods, which, again, we come back. This book teaches you grammar explicitly. There is a direct grammar section, but this Christopher didn't read the grammar section. They are in Latin, not in English, so totally useless. I totally disagree with this. They are very useful if you can think. If you can understand them, you don't need the book. No, they are not above the level. It is not a grammar explained in terms that are over your head. Look at the grammar at the very beginning. It uses like ridiculously simple language prepositions. Julius ad villam it, ad oppidum ad ancillas. There is not like too much like vocabulary or like sentences around it. You can understand the grammar from the explanations, and as the vocabulary grows, it is becoming more and more detailed, so you can understand it. But still, like even in Verba de Ponentia, it uses a lot of examples. So no, it's a great graded reader. I also agree if you use another method. Yep, but grammar translation method is actually teaching you bad habits, and that's why we shouldn't use it. Because if you want to read, you don't want to understand. Don't want to translate. You want to understand, and this is a totally different thing. I have graduated from translation studies. When we translated English to Polish, Polish to English, in both languages, you have to be very fluent at the beginning. To start these studies, you have to be really fluent. You have to understand both languages very well. Of course, Polish is not a problem, it's my mother tongue. But even simple translation was a challenge. Why? Because it's a different skill. You can speak and understand a language very well, but then have difficulties in translation because it's a totally different skill. Finding a very good equivalent, you can feel the meaning of a word, that it's a strong something, a strong emotion, for example, but that doesn't mean that you can quickly find an equivalent in another language, not to mention translating something that's more idiomatic. For example, there's a very, very famous phrase, thank you from a mountain, which is like a word to word translation from Polish to English. And in Polish, if you say that, dziękuję z góry, it means thank you in advance. So translation is not always that easy. You have to know many more things. Then, and did none of the pensa, useless work exercises. I don't know why. I mean, if you haven't done it, you don't know. Yeah, of course, if you know all the grammar theoretically, maybe, but you are. This is part of the learning, doing the exercises. I would say don't use a traditional grammar translation method, but use this book as it is intended. And this is what I'm going to like talk a little bit, because this video is getting quite long. But this book is not the only one. It's accompanied by other books. For example, by Colloquia Personarum. So this book contains just dialogues, but these dialogues are adapted at the level of the first 23 chapters. So for each chapter from the first 23 chapters in this book, you have a dialogue here to read. So you have extra reading practice. There isn't a single, or maybe there is a single, really literally single or something word that's added here. So a very good way of reviewing. The exercises are not only present in this book, there are other books. So Exercitia Latina, 2 parts, one for Familia Romana, the other for Roma Eterna, plus Nova Exercitia Latina. I don't know if there is a second part, but there is a first part. So you can work your way through this book with tons of exercises. And exercises are actually very, very important, because when you read, you have to read, if you want to read fluently, you have to read more than 60 words a minute. That's 1 word a second. You don't have the time to analyze the form. Even more, you have to be able to quickly connect the form of adjective with the form of a noun that might not be next to each other, which is not that difficult. We do it every day in Polish. You just need to exercise this skill, and that's why you have those books. Then, in addition to these, there is a guide for teachers which contains very simple texts, again adapted, prepared for each lesson. So for the first chapter, then first and so the second, third, etc. You can, if you can get this book, You can read them too. Another thing that's from this series is Fabulae Surae. He recommends it somewhere on his channel. And this book is also very, very useful. These are stories from Greek mythology, maybe Roman too. Yes, Roman too. And they start with the chapter 26. So with this lot, you read and read. And don't read anything once. You have to read twice, 3 times, 4 times. Why? Because you're practicing your reading skill. And you already see that this is much more than this one book. You have to use it together. I'm sorry, but that's, you need tons of hours to learn a language. Then people would tell you this is a series. There is a second part to it that you haven't mentioned. Now, this guy hasn't mentioned. It's Roma Aeterna. And Roma Aeterna is a book that there is a gap between Familia Romana and Roma Aeterna. Everyone will tell you that. There's a big step you have to make. But with all these extra books, especially with Fabulae Surae, where you get some extra vocabulary, you can you can read it and, well, learn Latin from it. So this book. Then people would recommend you other books, like, for example, Fabellae Illustratae. Again, myth stories that are adapted down to, well, they start from the 5th chapter, so you can go up to the to chapter 30, so you can use it together with Familia Romana and again get a lot of vocabulary explained in the margins. So with these books, with this series, you have already tons of other preparation that were not mentioned in the text. So if you want to learn Latin, use this series, not just one book, use the whole series. Do it as it was designed to do. So it was designed to be read more than once, a few times, read aloud, where you can, this is another form of learning. I also copy this in the texts in hand, so that I practice, like, I activate different parts of my brain in order to understand and to learn Latin. So this is your way to learn through all the books. Then you have, in this series, there are a lot of real Latin texts that are prepared for a learner, so you would have explanations and margins. So don't jump directly to Loeb, which actually contains, if you need, an English translation on the side. So maybe don't directly jump to Oxford editions, which are, in my opinion, better, because you don't buy the English translation, just buy the Latin text, which comes, one Loeb book is usually a little bit cheaper, but here you can have complete text in one book, and here you sometimes have to buy 5 or something like this. So I prefer the Oxford editions. But before getting there are tons of books prepared for learners. Plus, no one says that you have to worship Familia Romana. There are other books. For example, Puer Romanus. This one is available in print also, but you can find it, it's in public domain. You can find a lot of Latin readers out there in order to practice your reading skills and extend your vocabulary. Oh, here is another book from this Orbeck method, but you don't have to stick with this one. You can take other books and other methods, for example, published by Paideia. Very good books. I wish they have done more, but I have those too in Latin, or maybe I have something else. But anyways, these texts contain everything here is explained in Latin. The text, there's simplified Latin text plus some extra explanations. So before you jump directly into original texts, you have these steps on your way. And no one is saying that you can't use a dictionary here and there, and that's why I recommend at some stage using, for example, these books by Jeffrey Stedman. I don't know how to pronounce his name. They are relatively cheap on Amazon. You can find them. So fabulae faciles are simple texts, so you can read them. But there are also like parts of Pliny, Virgil. You can have Cicero, Caesar. Why are they good? So you can have a text with explanations in English. I don't think that this should be used as the author here intended after reading the whole Familia Romana series and other things, but you just read the Latin text, and if there's a word that you don't understand, you can quickly find an English translation. Of course, this is good if you're fluent with English. Sometimes, to be honest, if the English translation is nearly the same word as the Latin word, I don't understand why it's there. Yes, it should be a synonym or something, but still, I think it's very useful. So if you want to get into reading like Latin books as they are, you need this intermediate reader is useful. I mean, by intermediate, like with extra help. And this is what happens when we learn any foreign languages. Very often, you will learn English as a foreign language without help of any other language. I mean, your lessons would be totally in English. Of course, there would be some, let's say, Polish, yes, when, for example, you're a beginner and your teacher has to tell you that the next lesson will start 15 minutes later, and all you can say is more or less good morning and how are you. So that would be in Polish, but the lesson itself is in English. Can we use translations? Yes. Here and there we can give one word, but we also remember that the whole explanation process is a teaching process, because if I have to explain to you something using gestures, using pictures, it is much easier to be remembered, because you remember sometimes the situation, how you've learned it, the movement. If I give you the Polish equivalent, your brain keeps the Polish, not necessarily Polish, but in your languages, your brain keeps this equivalent. It doesn't use the word in the language that you're learning. So this is a moment of learning when you don't use your mother tongue as an aid, but you try to guess the meaning. And what's also important, if we come back to these texts, they become clearer after some time. So in Familia Romana, you go through the first chapter, you go to the second, to the third. But when you're at the third chapter, it is a very good idea to do is to read the first one again. Because not everything is repeated all the time. It's still a book it's limited. Yes, it cannot repeat everything. And we tend to forget things. So going back is very useful. And then I would say that it is not the best book that we could have for Latin. I mean, I can imagine a far better book that would probably fulfill the need to learn better. I mean, series of books. I would have them, first of all, more. I would have shorter texts that introduce some aspects of language with some other explanations. I would use more modern techniques of doing these explanations, but take a book for Spanish, for English, for German. Those books are totally written in that language very often. So you don't need the the other language, your mother tongue, to help you read. So that's the thing. I know that this person has made a reaction video, so that I mean, not reaction video, but a response video that we can learn using any method we want. But I think he made this scarecrow argument. Yes, he created a vision of this book that's not true and attacked this vision, and that's why I have made this video, which is a kind of reaction to it. And I hope that this will also help you learn Latin. So take the book. Don't listen to that guy. Take this book with all this series, go through it very carefully, diligently, and read it with all the extras. Use any other books that can help you, yes, on your way. Use these books that are already in open domain, like this one, like Puerto ones. By the way, everything that's written by Appleton, you can look for this. He has written many books, like readers and things like this, so you can use them as you learn. Don't forget the second part. And then, after finishing all this, you have a lot of books that can help you learn Latin and read original text before you jump like to the deepest of the deepest waters. I hope you liked it. You liked the video. Have a nice day, and I hope that my Latin soon will be good enough to make such videos in Latin. See you. Bye bye. Valete.